My family dumped me in a nursing home, so I came up with the most brilliant revenge ever. My son promised to care for me, then handed me off to my daughter-in-law, who left me at a nursing home like forgotten luggage. That's when I knew. If they played dirty, so could I. I hadn't felt young in a long time. It wasn't just something I noticed in the mirror anymore. That day, it hit me in my hands, my fingers, to be exact, when I tried to open a jar of pickles and just couldn't. I stared at it for a while, sitting there at the kitchen table. Well, Linda, I muttered to myself, you're not 20 anymore. Not even 40. I gave the jar another weak twist, but it wouldn't budge. You know what's worse than getting old? Admitting you need help? The truth is, I've never liked asking for anything. Not favors, not help. Especially not from Thomas, my son. Not because he was a bad son, he wasn't. He was actually a very good one. Kind, thoughtful, always polite. But he was busy, always had a full plate. Between work, his wife Amber, and their baby, I hated the idea of adding to his load. Still, there comes a point when stubbornness becomes loneliness, and when jars of pickles become your enemy, something's got to give. That evening, I picked up the phone and called him. He answered after the second ring. Mom, everything okay? He asked right away, his voice full of concern. I'm just getting older, sweetheart, I said honestly. I need someone around the house, just in case. There was a pause on his end. Then he said, maybe we should just move in with you. You mean you, Amber, and little Nick? Yeah, but you know how old the house is, Mom. It's not that I'm against it. It's just a lot. The baby, Amber's job, I get it. I said after a short silence. I really did understand, but I also needed them. Not just physically, emotionally. But if the house were yours, I added slowly, it wouldn't just feel like a burden. It would be your home too. You mean, you want to sign it over to me? I want you to be the man of the house now. Make the decisions. Be in charge. But on one condition. What kind of condition? That if anything ever happens, anything at all, you won't leave me. Promise me that. You won't leave. Mom, come on, he said gently. Of course not. You're my mom. I'll talk to Amber. And just like that, something shifted in my chest. A small, quiet feeling. Not quite a warning. More like a distant bell of doubt. It wasn't about Thomas. It was about Amber. But I ignored it. I told myself it was nothing. Within a week, we signed the papers. Just like that, the house was his. I thought, with them moving in, we'd be close again. Like a real family. 3 generations under one roof. Laughing. Sharing meals. Helping each other. I imagined us sitting at the same table. Talking about our days. Passing the baby around. Hearing his little giggles fill the house. But that's not what happened. Thomas left not long after. He had to go on a business trip, something extended, he said. Just for a couple of weeks. Before he left, he gave me a long hug, then said, Mom, please don't argue with Amber. She's just tired. Like you. Try to find common ground. I nodded. I told him not to worry. For the first 2 days after he left, we managed to stay civil. I stayed out of Amber's way as much as I could. I baked little pies, hoping to win her over. I even offered to make some broth for little Nick. No, Amber said, wrinkling her nose. We're on a gluten-free diet, and the baby's eating intuitively now. Intuitively? I asked, not quite sure I'd heard right. Yes, she said, nodding. He chooses what he wants. Yesterday, he had pineapple off a pizza. I didn't say anything, just smiled and quietly put the pies in the freezer. But by the 3rd day, everything started to change. Amber began what she called training the grandma. That's what she told someone over the phone, not knowing I was nearby. She said it half-jokingly, but I heard the edge in her voice. Then she started walking into my room without knocking. No respect for privacy. One morning, she marched in and sighed loudly, like she was already exhausted with me. You left the iron on, she snapped. No, I turned everything off, I replied, confused. I already told Thomas, she said casually. He's really worried. But that's not true, I said softly. That's a lie. Amber looked at me with a cold smile and didn't say anything. It's just a slightly polished version of reality, Amber said one morning, her voice sharp but calm. What you need is professional help. I stared at her, confused. Amber, what are you saying? I'm perfectly clear-headed. We'll see about that, she replied, turning her back to me. Her words lingered in the air like smoke, hard to grasp, but impossible to ignore. Over the next few days, I noticed how often she was on the phone, speaking in low, hushed tones. She'd walk into the hallway or into the guest room and close the door behind her. I tried to give her the benefit of the doubt, but something about the way she glanced at me afterward, like I was a stranger or worse, a burden, left me uneasy. Then one afternoon, I overheard a conversation that shattered everything. Babe, she whispered urgently into the phone. She left our son at the playground. I barely made it in time. Yeah, I get it now. It's not just age. It's decline. It's dangerous. I felt the blood rush to my face. My hands trembled. I stepped into the hallway, heart pounding. What? I was right there. I never left. His side. You're lying, Amber. And you know it. She didn't even flinch. But before I could say more, the hallway seemed to twist around me. My legs gave out. I reached for the wall, but the spinning didn't stop. The world went black. When I woke up, the lights above were too bright. Doctors stood nearby, murmuring to each other. My head was heavy, my mouth dry. And Amber, she was calmly folding clothes into my suitcase. What are you doing? I asked, still groggy. We're leaving, she said without looking at me. It's time for a retreat. Everything's arranged. A retreat? I struggled to sit up. But I don't want to leave my home. She finally looked at me, eyes cold. This is no longer your home. I felt something crack inside me. But Thomas promised. I've already discussed it with him, she said flatly. He thinks you need full-time care while he's away, and I'll make sure you get it. I couldn't speak. My throat was tight, my chest even tighter. 40 minutes later, I was in the backseat of a car, clutching my purse and suitcase, staring out the window in disbelief. We pulled up to a place with a large sign out front, a nursing home, wide hallways, floral wallpaper, a nurse at the front desk with tired eyes. Amber led the way, practically glowing. She spoke with the administrator like they were old friends. Then I saw her reach into her purse and hand over a small bundle of neatly folded $100 bills. I stood up, my legs shaking but my pride pushing me forward. Is this a joke? Amber smiled sweetly. It's care, she said. I'm just placing you in good hands. Then she leaned closer, close enough that no one else could hear her. Finally, she whispered, I'm rid of you. Tears stung my eyes. I knew she never truly liked me, but I never imagined she could be this cruel, cold, calculated. Why, Amber? I asked, my voice barely holding steady. I gave you the house. We're family. Exactly, she said with a shrug. You gave it up and lost. She walked out the door without another word. I watched her go, helpless as the administrator rolled a wheelchair slowly toward me. That night, I sat in the common room, surrounded by the quiet hum of television static and distant chatter. I didn't feel anything. Not sadness, not anger, just a hollow space where my life used to be. And then behind me, someone sneezed. Loudly. I turned around, annoyed at first, until I heard the voice that followed. You haven't changed a bit, it said with a chuckle. Still the same Linda, straight back and that don't mess with me stare. I turned fully now. My eyes widened. My breath caught. Joe? I whispered. Joseph. There he stood, smiling at me like no time had passed. My childhood friend. The boy I used to race bicycles with. The one I'd shared secrets with under the old oak tree. I hadn't seen him in decades. In the flesh, he said, hands in his pockets. And just for the record, I co-own this place. Funny where a love for senior citizens can lead you. I stared at him, disbelief melting into something warmer. Recognition, maybe even hope. That same grin, that same spark in his eyes. What are you doing here? I asked, my voice softer now, steadier. I make the best coffee within a 10-mile radius, Joe said proudly, placing a steaming mug on the small table beside me. And I occasionally bump into old friends who've been dumped here under the label of rest and recovery. I raised an eyebrow. So, you saw everything? He didn't hesitate. You mean your charming daughter-in-law slipping cash into the nurse's coat pocket? Oh yeah, I saw that. I'll fire her tomorrow, don't worry. Joe shook his head with a tired sort of amusement. What a caring little family you've got there. I sighed and leaned back into the worn armchair, letting its comfort swallow me. They didn't even try to sugarcoat it. No speeches about it being temporary. No gentle lies. They just handed me over. Like I was a package they didn't want to carry anymore. Joe didn't say anything right away. He just looked at me. Not with pity, but with something steadier. Respect, maybe. You know what I like about you? He finally said. The way you stayed quiet. You took the hit. You didn't scream, didn't crumble. You just watched it happen. I smiled. For the first time in days, maybe even weeks. Joe, I said, sitting up straighter. I didn't crumble because I hit pause. Act 1 is done. But Act 2? I gave him a sly smile. It's coming. He laughed. A real hearty laugh. Oh, I do love a good drama. If you need a partner in crime, count me in. You got a suit? 2, actually. One of them's from prom. Might still fit over my right leg. Perfect, I said, grinning. We'll start with a transformation. And an order from AliExpress. Joe tilted his head, eyebrows raised. Oh ho, now you've got me curious. What's next? A small, delightful lie, I said softly. For people who think they're just a little too clever. Joe gave me a mock salute and headed off toward the kitchen to make another round of coffee. For the first time in a very long while, I didn't feel sad, or bitter, or invisible. I felt something entirely different. amusement, excitement. Joe. And I had been troublemakers once. Back when we were kids running barefoot through the neighborhood, plotting silly pranks on our parents. We had history, mischief in our bones. And now, fate had handed us a stage. After a week at the retirement home, I officially dropped off the radar. No calls, no updates, no visits. I was gone as far as my family was concerned. Joe, being the generous soul that he was, offered to let me move into his house. I didn't hesitate. His place was warm, bright, and full of life. A real home. He had a garden bursting with color, a swimming pool he claimed he never used, and a proper kitchen where I could finally cook again. Thomas called a few times in the beginning, asking how I was doing. His voice was rushed, distracted. I could hear Amber in the background once or twice. Then the calls stopped altogether. I figured he was getting updates from the nursing home. Probably assumed I was still sitting there, wrapped in a blanket, waiting for someone to visit. Meanwhile, Joe and I were working on something big. A small, elegant performance just for my dear family. One afternoon, I came into the living room, holding a cardboard box in my hands. "Look at this," I said, barely able to contain my grin. "It's here." Joe leaned in with interest. "How long did it take?" 10 days, I said. "But totally worth it. Watch this." Together, we pulled open the flaps and gently lifted out a giant check. It was shiny and smooth with bold letters printed across the front. National Seniors Lottery. $1,000 winner. Joe stared at it, then burst out laughing. "That is officially the funniest thing I've seen in the last 30 years. It looks real." I raised an eyebrow. "Do you know what a real one looks like?" He smirked. "No idea." "Me neither," I said, chuckling. "But that's not the point, is it?" "But neither do they," I said, grinning as I stood back to admire the oversized lottery check. "Wait, what's this hologram thing in the corner?" Joe asked, leaning in with a squint. "Oh, that?" I chuckled. "It's a sticker from a unicorn in space sticker set. From a distance, though, it looks very official." Joe burst out laughing. "Brilliant. From 3 feet away, it might as well be government issued." I grinned. "So, what's next?" Joe rubbed his chin. "We need a car. Something flashy." "I figured," I said, crossing my arms. "I know a guy at a rental place," Joe said, winking. "Owes me a favor from back when I returned his wife to him." I blinked. "What?" "Long story," he said with a smirk. "Well, then get something bold. To match your lipstick?" "Exactly." I smiled, touching up my red lipstick in the hallway mirror. The next hour flew by. We staged everything like pros, angled the lighting just right, adjusted the curtains for that perfect golden glow from outside. The check was carefully propped up behind me, visible but not too obvious. I practiced a small, graceful smile, not too giddy, not too fake, just happy enough. Joe snapped the photo. We checked it. Perfect. We sent it to Thomas with a short, polite dinner invitation. "Would love to see you both. Come by for dinner. 7 p.m. A little news to share. Mom." The trap was set. At exactly 6:58 p.m., the doorbell rang. Right on cue. I was in the hallway, adjusting my pearl earrings in the mirror. The rented dress fit like a dream, deep blue velvet, just enough sparkle. Hair done professionally. Lipstick red as wine. Confidence? On full blast. Joe popped his head around the corner from the kitchen, looking dashing in a charcoal suit. "They're here," he said, eyebrows raised. "Showtime? Curtains up," I replied. I opened the door slowly with a soft smile. Amber nearly tripped over the welcome mat. Her mouth fell open so wide I feared it might not close again. "Linda?" she gasped. Thomas stood behind her, equally stunned. "Mom, what is this place?" "Oh," I said lightly, stepping aside. "Just something we picked up after the win." Amber walked in like she was entering a palace. Her eyes scanned the foyer. Polished marble tile, gold-framed, mirror, the faint scent of roses and expensive candles. I watched her try to process it all. Her lips moved silently. Thomas blinked. "You actually won?" Right then, Joe appeared with a tray of drinks, wearing his best poker face. "She sure did," he said cheerfully. "I'm Joe, her future husband, according to the tabloids." Amber's eyebrows shot up. Thomas nearly spilled his drink. I smiled sweetly. "Well, you know how lottery winnings tend to accelerate relationships." And just like that, the show began. We sat around the dining table, candlelight flickering, linen napkins folded like swans, roasted salmon with lemon glaze, and jazz playing softly in the background. The table said one thing: we're rich now, and effortlessly so. Amber couldn't stop smiling, or blinking, or nervously fake laughing. Her eyes darted from the wine glasses to the chandelier, then back to my necklace. This is amazing," she finally said, voice thin. "You look fantastic, Linda. Really, money suits you." "Oh, I think it's just love," I replied, giving Joe a wink. Thomas cleared his throat, shifting in his seat. I'm just glad you're okay, Mom, he said awkwardly. You know, after everything. Yes, I said, meeting his eyes. After everything. A long pause settled in the air. Then Joe gently tapped his glass with his spoon. It gave a soft ting that made everyone turn. Well, he said, since we're all here, Linda and I have a little surprise. Amber leaned forward, eyes gleaming. Thomas sat straighter. I reached under the table and pulled out 2 envelopes. They were thick, heavy, and elegant. The kind that felt important just from the way they looked. We wanted to give you something, I said warmly, sliding them across the table. A gift. After all, you both took such great care of me when I needed it most. Thomas reached for the first envelope, but before his fingers even touched it, Amber snatched it from his hands. She opened it quickly. Her eyes widened as she pulled out the papers inside. This is the deed, she whispered. To this house and the car, Joe added casually, tossing a small set of keys onto the table. Amber gasped. Oh my God, Linda, this is so generous. I smiled, keeping my voice calm and sweet. Well, I said gently, there's just one thing. I slid the second envelope toward Thomas. He looked at it, confused. What's this? He asked. Just a little formality, I said lightly. A simple signature? To return my old house to me? You know, for sentimental reasons. Amber's smile faltered. Her eyes darted around the room, taking in the chandelier, the crystal glasses, the glow of luxury that had been carefully staged. Her jaw tensed for a moment. Then she looked at Thomas. Honey, she said softly, it's just paperwork. I mean, look at this place. Thomas hesitated, then slowly nodded. He picked up the pen and signed. I smiled, folded the papers neatly, and slipped them into my purse without a word. Well, I said, exhaling with a calm satisfaction. Now that everything's settled, who wants dessert? Joe raised his glass, grinning. To second chances, especially for those clever enough to fake $1 million lottery just to get their home back. Amber let out a nervous chuckle. Her eyes didn't quite meet mine. Suddenly she remembered she had an early morning yoga class. Something about a retreat. Or maybe a detox. Thomas mumbled something about traffic and work piling up. They left. In exactly 14 minutes. 15, if you count the awkward hug at the door. The very next week, I moved back into my house. My house. The garden needed some attention. The walls needed a fresh coat of paint. But it was mine again. And this time, I intended to fill it with joy, not silence. Joe and I didn't rush into anything. We kept dating, like 2 teenagers. Except we had slightly more knee problems and far better taste in wine. We took long walks. We cooked together. We laughed. A lot. As for Amber and Thomas, well, let's just say they learned something important. You don't play games with someone who taught you how to hold the cards. Eventually, Thomas filed for divorce. I was surprised at first, but then I saw how he started to change. He began calling more often, visiting too. I even started seeing my grandson on weekends. Sometimes life hands you lemons. Other times, it hands you a fake lottery check and a second chance to live life on your own terms. And me? I chose life. Every messy, beautiful, unpredictable part of it.